In this segment, we will illustrate how to use the Bair rubber track install and removal kit for the CAT 287, 287B, and the ASV TEREX 85, 100, and RCB machines. This kit will help you to remove and install rubber tracks fast and easy with hydraulic parts that will do most of the work for you. The machine will need to be raised about 6 inches. Please take all safety precautions by using appropriate jack stands or supports. The boom will need to be raised and the boom support lock installed. First, remove the track tensioner. If the machine has the original jack screw tensioner, the nuts may be rusted or frozen. In this example, we simply heat the nuts with a torch to allow them to turn. As you can see, we're protecting our hoses with a piece of scrap metal. The pins may also be very tight, so an air hammer may be required. If the machine has a Bair hydraulic track tensioner, simply release the pressure and remove the tensioner. Next, remove the slide bolts for the drive, then the pinch bolts. These bolts are on both sides of the drive. Now we will attach the saddle plate and the saddle lock plate. Make sure the notches face forward toward the front of the machine and the hole in the lock plate lines up with the hole in the saddle plate. The bolt is supplied with the kit, and the bolt only needs to be snug tight. Next, install the hydraulic cylinder support. The bolts and nuts are supplied with the kit and need to have a snug fit. Here we're installing the hydraulic cylinder. On new hydraulic cylinders right out of the kit, it may be necessary to grind off some of the paint on the ends for proper fit, as the paint has a tendency to build up there. To pull the drive forward, we will move the input port from the rear of the cylinder to the front so it will retract the rod, moving the drive forward. Here, we are installing the push-pull bar to the cylinder with a supplied nut and bolt. We've hooked up the hydraulic line to the cylinder and are installing it using the pins from the original tensioner mechanism. Nuts are not required on these pins. Now, stroke the porta-power, and you'll see the drive move toward the front of the machine. If you do not have a porta-power, a grease gun will work also. Next, remove the push-pull bar so we can use the hydraulic cylinder to pull the drive farther forward. As you can see, the end of the hydraulic cylinder is connected to the tensioner boxes using the existing pin. Now we will continue to pull the drive forward. In some circumstances, you may need to apply a little upward pressure to help move the drive up and over metal parts. Here, we have repositioned the cylinder so the angled portion is inverted and pulling forward on the connecting bolt. Continue to pull the drive forward until the pivot holes line up for pivot bolt insertion. Remove the hydraulic cylinder. Using pry bars, swivel the drive assembly out and forward. On this operation, we have slid some 2x under the track to raise it and provide us a little more room at the top as we pull the track off. Again, using a pry bar, we're working the track off the idler wheels on the front and rear of the machine and over the drive assembly. It helps if the drive assembly is at a full 90-degree angle from the track assembly. The process of installing a rubber track is the same for new or used tracks. First, position the track on the frame with pry bars and your hands. We are now reversing the ports on the hydraulic cylinder to push. Install the cylinder to the cylinder support using the second hole toward the rear of the support. We are now installing the hydraulic push block. Notice how the angle of the clevis on the cylinder is facing outboard. The tabs on the curved push block will face inboard when it's installed. Next, we use tire soap or grease to slick up the surfaces of the contact, including the top of the drive lugs inside the track. This will allow everything to slide together much easier. Here, we're installing the curved push block with the bolt and nut, which are included in the kit. This nut needs to be fairly tight. Once the push block is installed and tightened down, stroke the cylinder and watch as the push block moves the track forward. You will need to help the track move into position with pry bars and/or a sledgehammer. Now you can see why we recommend the use of tire soap or grease. This machine has the OE factory rubber wheels, which tend to make the process a little more difficult. With the Bair alloy metal wheels, the process is significantly easier as the track slides over the wheels more freely. Next, remove the curved push block and the hydraulic cylinder. Here, we are pivoting the drive assembly back into position under the track using pry bars. Reinstall the hydraulic cylinder, putting in the pin and positioning the angle portion to push the drive assembly back. Retract the cylinder and reinstall it for the second push. Notice how the cylinder clevis is rotated down to push in the existing pin bosses. If you're installing the original jack screw tensioner, more push will be needed. If you are installing a Bair hydraulic tensioner, this position is far enough, as the Bair tensioner will push to the final positioning of the track assembly. Remove the plates and hydraulic cylinder support. Reinstall the tensioner bolts loose so it will be free to slide as the assembly is pushed back. We recommend using an anti-seize compound on the bolts. With everything in position, we use the Bair hydraulic tensioner to complete the push for perfect alignment and track tension. To get the correct tension on the track, we put 90 to 100 pounds of downward pressure in the center of the track, producing 1 inch to 1.5 inches of down deflection. All that's left is tightening up the bolts. Make sure the caps on the grease fitting are reinstalled and lowering the unit safely to the ground.